moon.
Hello and welcome to Fat Man and Dead Boy Painting on That's No Moon. So, we had our quick intro video. Hello, here I am. And now let's get into some actual useful stuff. So, today we're going to talk about paintbrushes, of which I have a considerable amount of. And there's more hidden away. So, which one's best? It's up to you, really. There are the premium brands, your Winsor & Newton, your Broken Toads, your Artis Opus, and Scale Colour in Vallejo do their own brushes. And then you have Citadel's brushes, which come in a variety of standards. I have yet to see any difference between the standards ones and the ones that you pay 4 times the amount for, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. And then, you know, your generic brands, and then like a couple of the new companies that you've probably seen all over the social medias and the interwebs, Golden Maple and those types. So let's have a look at a few different brushes. Let's move this around. Okay. So we've got here some old ones. They're Games Workshop Citadel red brushes. They're nowhere near as good as you remember. Winsor & Newton brushes. Very good brushes. However, £3 or £4, £21. I'm not sure there is £21 worth of difference in it for your average painter. It's if you're using it a lot, and I do use them a lot, they are great. It's £21. That brush has lasted me many years. But Artis Opus, can't remember how much they are, but they're not cheap. Broken Toad, another good one, and Golden Maple. The Master Series, that it is not focused. There we go. Yeah, the Master Series Finest Sable. Newer Citadel ones, a more flat head brush type. The cheaper Golden Maple ones, again, flatter brush. The new blusher type dry brushes. And the flatter type brushes. So, all these different brushes, which one's the best? Honestly, whichever one you like. There really is from brand, it is pretty much which one makes you happy. But what we're looking for is, realistically, if you're just using basic acrylic paints, as a fine sable haired brush with a decent ferrule, which is your shiny metal bit here, that keeps its tip and doesn't, we'll get you to focus, do that, curl to a hook tip. That's the one you want to avoid. That's the thing we want to avoid most. So, if they're all, and the thing is, each one of these brands, from the like cheap maple, the cheap like 50p a brush Golden Maple ones, to the £21 a brush Winsor & Newtons, have all hook tipped on me at some point. So there is a little bit of hit and miss about it, and quality. What you'll generally find, though, is the frequency of that is very much down to that you find that happen is also very much down to the quality of manufacture. But if you're looking at how would you find out that as you're going to buy a brush, this is the thing. A friend who's a proper art student, instead of me, who's just an electrician who knows how to slap paint on, told me, and you go to any like the proper art supply shops, there's one in Manchester called Fred Eller's, where they will allow you to test a brush out. And I actually asked the brush manufacturer this at UK Games Expo, who was hawking his brand new brushes, and he refused point blank to let me test them with clear water, which immediately meant I was not spending £80 on his nice brush set, no matter how lovely and orange the handles were. So what you do is you get some clean water and some cartridge paper. Dip your brush in the water and you just do some faint lines on the paper. Now, unfortunately, you can't actually see that, I've noticed on camera, but it is doing a trail. And what you're seeing is, what you're looking for is it a nice clean line, and does it go back to a neat tip? Which is what we're on. It splays open, all the bristles open up nicely when you push down without too much force, but when I come off, it goes back to a tip. Wet brush. That's what you're generally looking for. Okay, so now we know how to test a brush. How do we make sure they last for a decent amount of time? Well, the main thing is to apply paint to them correctly. So, and to use them correctly. So, if you get your brush out, so different brush now, brand new brush, I've just got out, and it's been used before, and I go to move it, none of those, they're all a bit stiff and stuck together. If you put paint straight onto that, it kind of coats a layer on the outside and isn't using the brush, and you're setting yourself up for harder work afterwards and for harder cleaning. If instead, take the same brush, you dip it in some water, just give it a swirl around, just let the bristles get wet. You now come to it and it just moves that much smoother. And now you can apply a bit of paint to it. So, let's stick some paint down here. How much paint and where? So, there's my paint, my brush. You only want paint on the tip like this. You just want to dip it in and let the bristles soak up some paint. And it really shouldn't come beyond this section here. Once you start getting further and further up, one, you're not really actually applying that paint onto the model anymore. And two, this is where you end up with brushes that look like this. Because what's happened is the paint has got stuck up here. It's solidified and it's pushing those bristles apart at the base. And then it's just good for the bin then. Or dry brushing. It's always, never throw them away immediately. They're always good for dry brushing. So, now we know how much paint to apply to your brush, now to get it on there, nice and clean. So, next bit, last bit, cleaning your brush. So, there are all sorts of lotions and potions. That you can use to clean your brush. This is more of a jelly type one. I'm not completely convinced with it, but it does actually leave them nice. The one that most will use, the Masters brush cleaner. Get this just about anywhere. And all you do is get your brush wet, rub it in the soap, and you just let it soak onto there for a while. give it about 10 minutes of just soaking onto it, and then clean it off at the end and it will come back to a nice even tip. Okay. However, a much better painter than me, Tommy Soul, says he never uses brush soap, and it's because he cleans his brush regularly throughout the painting, and I have no reason to doubt him because Tommy's a good friend and a bloody good painter, and he knows a lot more about this than I do. If you ever want to check him out, he's on Golem Paints. The man has forgotten more about painting toy soldiers than I will ever know. For me, it sounds like a really good idea, but it requires discipline that I don't have, because he is constantly cleaning his brush between colours, and that's great, but the best one in the world, I'm not going to do that. So if you are, obviously brush soap might not be something you need. It's not going to murder them at the end, but okay. So let's have a look at these. So with all that said, it's now coming on to 11 minutes of me waffling about paintbrushes, and I've not said what my favourite is. So it changes quite frequently, and depending on what I'm doing. But at the moment, I've got to say, if you want a decent set, this Golden Maple Master set was about 30 quid for 5 brushes and 3 dry brushes, and I have been using them pretty solidly now for 2 months, and I've no hook tip and no complaints about them. But there we go. See you later.
You've been listening to That's No Moon, a Star Wars Legion podcast. To keep up to date with us, please like and follow us on Facebook, That's No Moon, a Star Wars Legion podcast, and Instagram, That's No Moon Podcast.